so what you're telling us is that you guys are plotting and planning. You know the big job you have ahead of you. You know investigations are the number one thing. Let's talk about what I think is the number two thing. Senate Republicans have really done a number on House speakers because Senate Republicans are not willing to stand up and fight on spending questions. So you always have this first budget vehicle that goes through, and it's a wrecking ball for House speakers because they try to negotiate with Senate Republicans and come up with something. Can we break this historic problem?
I hope so.
And can House Republicans tell Senate Republicans, look, we're going to pick one big thing and maybe one or two little things like defund NPR. That'd be a nice one. Defund PBS. That'd be a nice one. Little things, but a big thing. And I think you have a theory on this. What is that big thing that we ought to get around and say we're not going to give in on this one?
The entire Republican conference will have to make a decision on that. I think it's probably either the border, because we all know that the chaos that now is our southern, but we no longer have a border, and frankly that is intentional. The Biden administration is intentionally doing that. So
and that's no longer a Republican issue. It's affecting all these communities.
Sure is. We talked about this earlier. We are a populist, because of President Trump, thank goodness, we are now a populist party rooted in conservative principle, which is frankly where we always should have been. So it's either the border or it's energy. Because energy when the price of energy goes up, that drives the price of everything else. It's why main reason why we got this 41-year high inflation rate. So one of those two areas, we have to pick that policy and say, okay, Senate, if you're going to spend at this level, we're going to pass a good budget in the House, good appropriations at the House down here in light of where we should be with the debt situation we have. It's going to go to the Senate, and Schumer and Biden are going to say, well, no, we got to spend up here on all kinds of crazy things. And we're going to say, okay, if you want any kind of spending level up there, then we got to get a good policy that actually does something good for the country on immigration, on our border security, I should say, or on energy. And I think that'll be a conference decision we have to. But you have to, our fiscal year ends September 30th. You can't wait till September 20th and start having a debate. You've got to have a national debate for weeks and weeks and months so that the country fully understands what's at stake and why it's appropriate to do this policy before we actually pass the appropriation bill.
Well, it just seems to me that if that's our big thing that we have to decide. Look, this is like for all of us, for the conservative activists around the country, you know, we have to be realistic. This is the first step towards regaining power, a big red wave in November. That doesn't get much accomplished unless we follow it 2 years later with an even bigger red wave. In that period of time, that year or so, less than a year, when that presidential race is coming about, we have to determine what we will fight like hell for in that first budget process. That could be fossil fuels.
Yep.
That could be building a pipeline at Keystone XL. That could be securing the border. That could be, you know, these major questions on elections. I still don't know if Carrie Lake has been declared the winner out in Arizona. It kind of makes me nervous. Has she been declared the winner? Please tell me she has been. But no, that's not good. So I just feel like that's what we have to get ourselves around. You brought up President Trump. You believe he's running. You've been saying that consistently throughout this whole period of time. Yeah. I know what he thinks of you. I know what he thinks of you as a wrestler, first of all, because he admires you as a fierce athlete, but I know what he thinks of you as a human being, and he appreciates the fact that you have stood up against all these lies against him, and we appreciate the fact so much that you speak for all of us when you do that. He's going to be on this stage on Saturday, and he might even be watching you right now, but he always has a speech, but then he kind of goes off the script, right?
Yes, which is always a great part.
Isn't that the best part?
Oh, I love that part.
I
like his whole speech.
Why is everyone telling him to stay on the script? I like the off-road vehicle version of Trump. I don't know.
I do too. I like his energy, his charisma. I love the fact that he loves the country. He loves our law enforcement, loves our veterans, our military. Most importantly, you know this, Matt, because we've had the privilege to spend a lot of time around him. I'm sure many of you have as well. He loves the American people.
He does love
what makes our country special. And the one thing he does, and it's genuine, it's real, and you all know it, when he speaks, he always lets the audience know, and the audience always understands this, that he's fighting for them.
Yeah.
And he said this is a great line, and it's so true. He says, the reason they come after me so hard is because I'm fighting for you. And that is exactly the truth, and it's why he was such an effective president and why I want him to run again.
So the final question here, Donald Trump decides to run for president. He's out there across the country. What do you think the number one thing he's learned after spending the time on the presidential campaign, 4 years in the White House, these constant attacks? What's different about him today than when he came down that escalator in 2015?
The experience he had in that first term, I think he's going to be ready to go on day one. Not that they weren't before, but it was,
Let's be honest, they weren't.
Well, he knew that the swamp was intense, that the bureaucracy, I mean.
He was ready, but it was too tough to take it all on at once.
Well, and it's hard. I mean, think about it. He got more done than any president in our lifetime, maybe in history, and he did it with every Democrat against him, everyone in the mainstream press against him, half the Republicans and all the bureaucracy against him, and in spite of that, got more accomplished than any president we've ever seen. So I think he knows what he's up against, and the fact that they've been going after him since he first ran, before he was even president, with what they did with the Trump-Russia collusion baloney. They started spying on his campaign before he was even elected, and they're continuing to go after him with the January 6th committee. So he understands how intense this is, and frankly, he said this. He doesn't have to do it. He's got a wonderful life with a wonderful family, but he does it because he loves this nation, the greatest country ever, and he's willing to go back and fight for it again.
Jim Jordan, thanks for being with us again.
Thank
God
you all.
bless you. Keep up the fight.
Thank you.